What's good YouTube? Welcome to my channel, Lifestyle and Conditioning. Can you train too much or can you train too little? What is the best amount of sessions for the best gains possible? Let's get right into it. How much can you train? Firstly, the least amount you can do is once per week and a maximum of 7 times per week. When we're talking about strength training, even if using PEDs, training 7 days a week is really pushing it, and for the purpose of this video, we'll assume you're not using PEDs. The reason for this is you're training too much, you will not be recovering enough. So if you're training too often, it will reduce your gains as you just won't recover enough in between sessions. Worse recovery also means you won't perform as well. Worse performance leads to less load and intensity, which leads to worse gains. Training too often will be dictated by your volume, intensity. Volume is the work that you do, so amount of sets and reps and load. On the opposite end, if you only train once per week, you will always be recovered and you will essentially be over-recovered. This also rings true if you're only training twice per week. Similarly, if you're training 6 days per week, you will likely not be recovering well enough. This narrows it down to somewhere between 3 and 5 days per week, which gives you ample time to recover. Depending on age, genetics, food, sleep, you might be able to train 6 days per week, which will be a minority of people. Because again, age, genetics, food, sleep, and everything else you have going on outside of your gym life. How much rest is needed? Most people will need 2 to 4 days of rest per week. Not only does this give you ample amount of time to recover, it also gives you ability to change around training days, which can be a value in of itself. Being around to change a day around and not being able to live in the gym creates a freedom you just will not have with 6 days per week. With 3 or 4 days of training per week, it can be pretty easy to change a day around. Once you hit 5 days per week, it starts to become a very tough challenge to change a day. With 5 days per week, you will have pretty much certain days where you need to train, given you will only have 2 days of rest per week, and may have to end up training 4 days in a row if you want to fit them in after having to move a days around. It can be done, however, it just poses a bigger challenge compared to 4 days per week. Depending on this split, this challenge can be even higher or potentially slightly less challenging compared to 4 days per week. When you're training 1 to 3 days per week, you will need to do full body in order to get the best gains possible. However, full body have its shortcomings due to there's only so much you can do per sessions. If you do 5 movements of 3 sets each, that's a total of 15 sets. Which is going to be close to what most people can do and still perform decently well. So with full body, you are limited on how many movements you can do per sessions, which means you cannot really focus on any particular muscle unless you do a lot of sets and can actually tolerate the volume. If you do 2 sets instead of 3 sets per movement, this will also create big limitations on the gains that you can get, and it becomes hard to create a focus on any muscle you develop. So imbalances come more easily. Whereas if you train 4 days per week, you can focus on each muscle more easily and being able to hone in on them to get the better development that you're after. With this said, if you buy a full body program that is made well, you can have days that focus on certain parts. Sadly, most trainers just put it together with a handful of movements and be done with it. In another video, I will cover how you can make full body work in your favor so you can get the stimulus needed and not needing to spend a lot of time in the gym. Training and social life. 4 days per week tends to be the best for most people. It gives you ample time to recover so your body can adapt to the training stimulus, and it also gives you the best options in order to change the day around so you can be social and not live in the gym. It gives you a good amount of rest days for maximum growth. You can also use an upper-lower type of split that can be modified as well to give you best gains. You can even have an upper-lower plus arm day with a total of 5 days per week, which also allows you to train fewer sets at least 2 of the sessions during the week, so you might have some shorter days as well. With 4 days per week, you will have the best options in terms of how many days you train, and also gives you plenty of rest and also being able to be social so your life doesn't revolve around going to the gym. Whereas with 6 days per week, it will leave you with no room to change the day around, and you may have to skip training completely for the day, as well as being more likely to get stuck, thus not being able to progress. high chance of injury happening because of how often you're training. So 4 days per week is probably the best for most people. Thank you for watching. Comment, like and subscribe. Lasting Conditioning signing out. Have a good one.